Trump will take office in 75 days. He will most likely be the sitting president when the world shifts into a post-disclosure world. However, the Biden administration has a golden opportunity. They can either disclose the non-human presence and become the most famous administration in the history of our world, or they can speak very soberly about the non-human presence or the UFO mystery, leaving their mark before Trump becomes commander-in-chief. It would baffle me if they left all this glory and legacy to the Trump administration. From a Democratic strategy standpoint, I would go so far as to say it would be political suicide for them to let Trump have this entire legacy. It would cement him as the most anti-establishment candidate ever, making the Republican Party look like absolute heroes and champions of transparency. Let's put this into perspective. The UFO cover-up will go down as the biggest scandal in American and world history. Remember, it's not just the US government that's concealing this non-human presence, but other governments as well, such as China, Russia, European nations, and so forth. Mr. Biden, if you're watching this, are you really going to let Trump get all the glory and leave you with glory crumbs at best? Why would you do that? I can just hear Trump saying the following when the time comes. They tried to keep it from you, but I said no more. The American people deserve to know what's out there, and now you do, thanks to me. It's incredible. It's spectacular. We've made history together. This is the greatest big league revelation ever, the biggest event in the history of our country and of the world. It's spectacular. And it's all because we didn't let them keep the truth hidden any longer, like the lame Democrats did. Losers! They had 4 years to tell the truth and they failed. There should be 10,000 statues of me all around the world for breaking the worldwide cover-up. It's huge. I will go down as the most famous man ever. Spectacular big league stuff.
Big league. Big league.
To be clear, I'm not suggesting that the Biden administration intends to disclose the non-human intelligence presence or to speak soberly about the topic publicly prior to Trump becoming the commander-in-chief. However, I think it will be a huge mistake if they don't do that, in my opinion. A friend of mine conveyed the following to me privately. He stated, "Your premise makes sense. If the November hearing is good, which is only days away at this point, Biden could disclose in December. This would not only give him a legacy, but it would blank Trump because all his day one priorities would be swamped by non-human intelligence questions, issues. But the problem here is that I don't think Biden is mentally capable or interested in the issue. He will be focused on Trump-proofing his foreign policy and other domestic aspects of his administration. But I agree, it would be perfect for him to do it now." End quote. I'm not going to harp on this, but I feel it's necessary to be transparent. And it's very simple. Obviously, now that Trump will become the commander-in-chief of the United States, I will be covering him a lot. Not because I'm enthusiastic about Trump necessarily, but because he's going to be the commander-in-chief. And if he says anything about UFOs, I'm going to have to cover it. So I wrote on November 6, 2024, "Congratulations to Trump supporters. I cast my vote for Kamala Harris. While I'm not a fan of Trump, I do hope he can help bring about UFO transparency and an end to the cover-up. The reason I felt it was necessary to communicate this is because I don't want anything I say to be misconstrued. Some people think that just because I'm talking about Trump, that means that I support him or I voted for him. No, I'm talking about Trump because he's relevant to the discussion at times. And so while I am going to stay apolitical, I'm not going to refrain from criticizing Trump if I think he handled the UFO issue poorly, but I'm also not going to refrain from complimenting Trump if I think that he did something good with the UFO issue. And so that's why I wanted people to know who I supported and who I voted for, but I'm not going to go beyond that as it comes to politics. Now, very bizarrely or disappointingly, there were people from both camps who got upset at me for this tweet. There's someone who actually blocked me. There is a Kamala Harris supporter that actually blocked me because of this tweet, even though I said I voted for her and that I'm not a fan of Trump. And then there were Trump supporters who were giving me issues under this tweet, giving me a hard time, saying I was being political. It's like, look, man, look, woman, look, human being. I'm not going to walk on eggshells. I think I'm striking a very responsible balance. I will keep it UFO oriented. The only reason I wanted people to know who I voted for is because I didn't want anything I say to be misconstrued as support or lack of support. So I needed to have at least that level of transparency. I hope I made myself clear. Let's proceed. So here's the deal. When Trump gets in office, progress is going to be made on the UFO front because the ball has already started rolling. It's started rolling in an accelerated way back in December of 2017 via the efforts of many. I'm not saying Biden played no role. He did sign some UFO legislation into law, but I don't know how much of a contribution he ultimately made. And in that same way, I don't know how much of a contribution Trump is actually going to be made. However, the flow of past efforts are going to continue moving forward even into Trump's tenure. And yet, even though much of the progress that will continue to be made has nothing to do with Trump, if I had to guess, I think Trump might take some credit for a lot of it. If it starts escalating and accelerating while he's president. And so that's why I'm saying that if the Biden administration doesn't want Trump to be the official disclosure president and get all the glory and go down in history as some would conceive the most important president based upon him being the one that disclosed or was part of the disclosure, then they need to get their act together. Now, in the following clip comes from a Twitter space that Lou Elizondo and Mark Kovic put together on October 24th, 2024. And Lou Elizondo breaks down everything that has happened recently regarding the ball moving down the field with greater UFO disclosure and transparency.
Lou, we always hear something big is coming, something's coming out, or someone's going to disclose something, but it never really seems to happen. And this is from Wildcats Num1, who says, my question is, when will it actually happen? It just doesn't seem like anything's really going to come out that's solid. I really hope it does. Keep doing the work you do, and I look forward to some disclosure to really come out.
Great. Well, I'm going to respectfully and very respectfully disagree with that because from my position, here's what I see over the last 7 years. I see an acknowledgement by the executive branch that these are real. They've created an entire office called Arrow, whether you like it or not, to actually investigate this with real money behind it and real authorities. You now have Congress that are writing legislation and have already passed legislation, both Trump and Biden, right? Both sides passing legislation for whistleblowers. You've had whistleblowers, to include people like Dave Fravor and Ryan Graves and David Grush, all come out, right? You've had the former director of national intelligence, Ratcliffe, come out and talk about it. You had the former director of the CIA, Brennan, come out and talk about it. And you had two former presidents of the United States, all in the last 7 years, say, Yeah, there's something to see here, folks. It's real. Oh, by the way, you had testimony in Congress where the USDI swore under oath and discussed things like ATIP. You had the Navy coming out and showing UAP and these balls that they could not explain and say, yes, they are truly unidentified. And you also have now these reports that are coming out to Congress, like the 100-day report, and then you had an annual report that's now due to Congress. And those reports are now being revealed to the American people. Let's not forget, just a couple years ago, Aero came out with their first report and said there's 144 incidents of UAP and 143 remain unsolved, but I'm sure by next year we'll have resolved most of them. What happens next year? Holy crap, there's now over 300. And what happens a year after that? Holy crap, now there's over 800 of these things, and we don't know what they are. Right? So you have more whistleblowers coming out ready to testify. You've got more hearings potentially coming up here in November. How much more do you really want? I mean, I understand people want to see a picture and they want some sort of validation, but I mean, the way I look at it is like, guys, you've had the validation. It's there. We are already beyond the threshold of disclosure. It may not be the particular flavor you want or maybe the way you expected it, but we're here. We're here. We're investing money. We have people for the record, members of Congress, even a member of the executive branch. You know, look at Podesta, right? It's amazing what these people are now saying for the record. And by the way, these are politicians who tend to be risk averse to begin with. So I tend to be a little bit more optimistic. Thank you for giving me credit for continue doing what I'm doing. I'm going to continue doing it. I'm doing it for you. So don't take my reply here, in disagreement as being hostile in any way. I understand what you want, and we are working like hell to try to make it happen. It just takes time. Remember when I first came out, I said, guys, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. If you're looking for instant gratification, which, by the way, no, you're not, but some people are, tune out for 5 years and then tune back in and see where we are in the conversation. But this is a big deal, folks. We're asking people to accept a new paradigm, a new reality that, frankly, could contradict with the way people were raised, maybe what you learned in Sunday school or Hebrew school or it's what your parents told you. This is a big pill to swallow. And you can't eat a 12-course meal all in one bite. You just simply can't. You'll choke. So we have to take this in bite-sized increments. And I know it's frustrating for a lot of people, but I think we are achieving the goal. Again, not as fast as people may want or expect, but we're getting there.
Okay, so I want to go over a few components of that clip from the Twitter space. And I jotted down some notes that are close to the original quotes. Lou stated, "You had the validation already beyond the threshold of disclosure. It may not be the particular flavor you want or the way you expected it." And I think this gets to the idea that disclosure is a process and not an event. The event that most of us think of or often think of when we think of disclosure is UFO confirmation, where there's no longer any debate. It's admitted by multiple governments, at least the U.S. government. We're given smoke and gun evidence of one of these craft or bodies that don't stem from human intelligence, that are more advanced than we are. And that would be UFO confirmation. So I think that's fair. I think we have gotten a lot of validation. I think we have progressed, but we have not moved beyond the threshold of UFO confirmation. Another thing he stated is this is a marathon and not a sprint. If you're looking for instant gratification, tune out for 5 years and then tune back in and see where we are in the conversation. And I think that's really important because a lot of people get so frustrated, angry even. And it's like, why do that to yourself? If this topic frustrates you, I would advise you to heed Elizondo's advice, which is to check out for 5 years, check back in and see where we are. And that's an important thing that he says, because implicative in what he's saying is that we will never return to pre-December 16th, 2017 New York Times UFO awareness and credibility and recognition levels. I mean, Lou Elizondo is putting that out there. I've put that out there because I believe that is absolutely true. And as much as some cynics or skeptics like to say how disclosure is always just around the corner, according to the UFO community, my favorite way to rebut that or to respond to that is, well, from your frame of reference, the UFO issue going back to pre-December 16th, 2017 New York Times credibility and media coverage levels is always just around the corner. I mean, folks, it's been 7 years. This whole thing has not imploded. It has not taken a U-turn. The credibility has not diminished. I mean, these are just objective facts. All you have to do is look at the media. The media is still covering this like crazy and covering it in a way that it did not cover it prior to December 16th, 2017. Now, if this whole thing is false, it's a big misunderstanding, it's a social contagion, and there's no there, then frankly, it should have imploded a long time ago. When is it going to implode? When are we going to go back to pre-December 16th, 2017 UFO awareness and recognition levels? Well, I'm going to put out a prediction. We never will, because there's a there and something true and real is unfolding. This is not a social contagion or a mind virus. Sorry, but it's not. And the evidence doesn't back that up that it is. And, when we finally do that grand U-turn that the skeptics seem to think we will, well, then you'll have a much better argument. And another thing Lou said is, this is a big deal. Asking people to accept a new paradigm, a new reality that could frankly contradict the way people were raised. Maybe what you learned in Sunday school and Hebrew school, what your parents told you, and I'll add, I think that's what he was getting at, was false. Why would Lou say this? Why would Lou say that maybe what we learned in Sunday school or Hebrew school is false? I suggest maybe there's more that he knows about the UFO issue that he can't share at this time because he's behind non-disclosure agreements. Maybe at some point he will be able to share it. Maybe others will be able to share it as we progress down the disclosure path. I have felt for a long time that UFO confirmation, the post-disclosure world, is going to challenge religious dogma. I'm not saying that religions won't be able to overcome those challenges. But at the same time, I would argue that those challenges will diminish the certainty that some people have of their doctrines being completely without error. That's just my opinion, and that's the way that's what I think is likely. But either way, the bulk of what Lou said is he went over all the things that have happened in this space and how we've progressed. We have a hearing coming up in days, November 13th, and it's said to be quite a big deal, and it's going to create some major headlines, and it's going to progress us even further. And so this is happening very soon, and not only that, as I've mentioned before, civilian analyst Matthew Pines said that there's going to be a coup de grace that's going to encompass somebody that you would recognize if you saw him in the news, who is going to back up David Grush's allegations. He also said other people are going to come forward in addition to him, but him or her, he didn't specify. But this person will be the main event, if you will. There are a lot of people who are speculating that it's Jim Clapper, who, I got to be honest with you, go look at Jim Clapper's resume. He is as solid as a rock. To put James Clapper in perspective, according to my quick research, he was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency from 1992 to 1995. He was the director of Geospatial Intelligence Agency from 2001 to 2006. He was the director of National Intelligence from 2010 to 2017. So he's been the director of 3 major national security agencies in his career. It's mind-blowing the credibility James Clapper has. If James Clapper ends up being the coup de grace, he comes out publicly and says, hey, I was in these positions. The American government has been lying to you about UFOs, and David Grush's allegations are true. That is going to be incredibly disruptive. Yes, I recognize it falls short of a smoking gun, but it will be incredibly disruptive nevertheless. And this is going to happen potentially on the watch of the Biden administration. The upcoming November 13th hearing will happen on their watch. The program with James Fox, his documentary will happen on their watch. Dan Farr's documentary that will have Lou Elizondo in it and others that is said to have some incredible voices. In fact, I actually wonder if Jim Clapper is going to be, now that I think about it, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Jim Clapper is going to be a part of that documentary, which would be incredibly disruptive. If all these things happen on Biden's watch, and yet Biden remains silent on the UFO issue, and then subsequently Trump becomes the president of the United States, and he goes at it. He rides the wave that he may not even necessarily have anything to do with, but because the UFO issue has become so prominent in the conversation, he uses it to his advantage for his legacy, for his clout, for his reputation. I would ask myself, why didn't the Biden administration get ahead of that? On November 4th, 2024, Ross Coulthart did an entire special on his show Reality Check titled Trump vs. Harris on UAP Transparency, which was really good. It will be linked below. And he talks about the many presidents that have literally been lied to about the UFO issue.
Mark my words, the public are going to find out, I suspect, very, very soon that the president was lied to, and multiple presidents have been lied to.
So let's say that Ross is correct, that in the very near future, the public is going to learn that multiple presidents were lied to. Well, what if we learn this while Trump is in office? And then Trump becomes this heroic figure that brings truth and transparency to the world about the UFO issue. And he brags and he boasts about being the chosen one, the transparency president. He says that he is Neo himself, and just takes it to the stratosphere, leaves no chips on the table, milks it for everything that it's worth. I mean, I don't see why Trump wouldn't attempt that to some extent. And I would understand anybody in office, regardless of who it would be, would milk that, being the president when this all comes out. I don't know why Biden would not want to get ahead of that so that he gets a part of the legacy, and that, the Democratic Party is perceived as having played a significant role in disclosure or confirmation via when their president was in office. So in the following clip from October 8th, 2024, Ross Coulthart again on his show Reality Check interviewed Michael Schellenberger, a journalist who broke the Immaculate Constellation story about a secret UFO reconnaissance program that has been insulated from congressional oversight. And he talks to Schellenberger about an incident where Senator Marco Rubio was lied to about UFOs.
Now, Michael, when I did the introduction to you earlier, I very specifically used a section of your first article from September 2023, where you named Stephanie O'Sullivan, a former Associate Deputy Director of the CIA and Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. And you stated that she was aware of a UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, but that she had denied its existence to Senator Marco Rubio. Now,
which is illegal.
I want to focus on that for a moment because of something I know that I'm not going to discuss in detail here. You've had no reason, have you, to doubt the accuracy of that assertion at all?
None.
The allegation on its face is that an officer of the US government has lied criminally to to a senator of the United States.
Yes. A very serious accusation.
You know, the thing I find incredible is you made that allegation back in September last year, like a year ago, and absolutely nothing has happened as a result of it.
So the allegation is that Stephanie O'Sullivan, former Associate Deputy Director of the CIA and Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, was aware of a UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program and illegally lied to Senator Marco Rubio about it. And nothing subsequently was done about it. Eventually, something is going to be done about all of this, obviously. As more of this comes out and the public becomes more aware of it, more people are going to ask, Donald Trump about the UFO issue. In other words, he's going to be drawn into the conversation whether he wants to be or not. And he is going to feel emboldened to speak more candidly about it. If the you-know-what hits the fan, we have whistleblowers, we have potentially James Clapper going forward, backing up David Grush, new whistleblowers, new documentaries, new UFO legislation, let's not forget that, with the whole review board to get files declassified and so forth. Trump is going to be in a position, potentially, to where all of this basically falls into his lap. And he is going to be championed as the hero of transparency, the one that broke the camel's back, the one that destroyed the worldwide UFO cover-up, among some. And I don't know why Biden is just going to allow this to fall into Trump's lap so that him and the Republican Party can have this amazing legacy. Now, I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not speaking about this through my vantage point. I'm speaking about it from presumably Joe Biden's vantage point. And this is a very weird situation. Donald Trump is not a typical president. For a variety of reasons, we can all agree on that, whether you appreciate those reasons or not. But it's almost, some could perceive as poetic justice, because the intelligence community, the military branches, have been lying to Congress, to presidents, to the world about UFOs for decades. And now you have a situation where someone quite bombastic, over the top, might take advantage of all of this in some sense and make this much more of a circus than it ever would have been. Now, I grant you, the cover-up coming to an end is inherently going to be a circus because of so many factors, including this whole thing's absurd. Every layer of it is absurd intrinsically. But the tradition of the intelligence community, the military branches lying so overtly to the point where there's disinformation campaigns that are funded by taxpayer dollars so that the public doesn't look into this and doesn't take it seriously, and so that Congress doesn't catch wind of it. It comes down to the expression, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I don't know. It appears to me we might be moving into an era where a stupid prize is going to be won. And the way this comes out is going to be incredibly disruptive and mind-boggling. On May of 2021, Joe Biden was asked about UFOs, and he handled it awfully. But again, there's 75 days until Trump takes office, and he has an opportunity to make some waves. Whether he takes that opportunity or not, I guess remains to be seen.
President Obama says that there is footage and records of objects in the skies, these unidentified aerial phenomenon. And he says we don't know exactly what they are. What do you think that it is?
I would ask him again. Thank you. Come on, Walt, let's go.
Biden out here passing the UFO baton to Obama like, not my legacy, not my problem. Ugh. Now, back in February of 2023, Ross Coulthart on Need to Know with Bryce Zabel, I'm reading a synopsis of what he said. He said, according to Mike Colangelo, Ross Coulthart suggests that a senior commander of the U.S. Navy went to the Biden White House and has accused the U.S. Air Force of hiding UFO information that has created an overall weakness in U.S. defense. I don't know if that's accurate or not. That's something I'd like to follow up on with Ross Coulthart if he has any new information on that. But the bottom line is, if Biden was briefed on UFOs and well aware of the allegations made by David Grush and had an understanding based upon people he spoke with that the UFO issue is not being handled properly and is being handled illegally and the American people in the world are being lied to, guess what Trump can do with that when Trump comes into office? He can say, I told the world, what did the Biden administration do? They were briefed like I was. They were told everything. But I'm big league. I'm letting you all know you're being lied to by the American government. UFOs stem from non-human intelligence. It's spectacular. It's beyond the beyond. Right? He could do that and make the Biden administration look horrible. Particularly if there's truth to that. If it's true, Biden had information but just decided not to pursue it, not to be the one to break this open. It would make the Biden administration and the Democratic Party, you could argue, look really bad. Here's a tweet from February 13th, 2015 that was from John Podesta when he just ended his tenure, as I understand it, being the advisor to President Obama. February 2015, he wrote, finally, my biggest failure of 2014, once again, not securing the disclosure of the UFO files. The truth is still out there. CC, New York Times, Dowd. So what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is, it does appear to me that this is all coming out. And if Biden was privy to a lot of this and he remained silent, and then Trump gets in office and he's bombastic and he's vocal and he puts himself in the most positive light as being the one willing to tell the public the truth about UFOs when every president before him were not willing, how does that set Trump up? And now, granted, Trump did serve 4 years as the president already, and I don't think he did anything that special or great during that time. In fact, as I recollect, he said that he doesn't particularly believe it, but the pilots do. That seemed to be his basic mantra. However, in this upcoming 4 years, when the UFO issue becomes more public, the stigma diminishes further, and maybe Trump feels like he has less to lose and maybe more to gain by accentuating the 70 plus years of lies the government, the intelligence agencies, the military branches have been responsible for about UFOs. He may come out like a cowboy and position himself to take immense credit for being the president that finally was transparent with the public about UFOs, spoke about it candidly, honestly. If I was the Biden administration, I would be concerned about that. Hoping it doesn't happen or ignoring it is not going to stop it from happening, because it does seem like this is coming out. And when we listen to former Colonel Carl Nell, he said that by 2030, this is all supposed to come out. The drip disclosure process is not going to continue indefinitely. Well, it's almost 2025, and Trump has 4 years ahead of him. James Fox said the same thing, that he's been told by high-level officials that this is going to come out by 2030. That positions Trump to be the disclosure president, to gain the ultimate legacy of being the commander-in-chief who was clear and transparent to the public. Imagine Trump speaking about a crash retrieval program, alien species, craft being recovered and being studied by corporations. You don't think that's going to add to his legacy? You don't think that's going to give the Republican Party a lot of respect and historical value? Especially when Biden was in office for 4 years, including when David Grush testified under oath before Congress about a crash retrieval program, reverse engineering these vehicles or attempting to, the recovery of bodies, a sub rosa Cold War between the United States and the United States allies, and he didn't take the time to talk about it in a public way and just left it for the Trump administration to have at it. I don't know. That's a head scratcher to me, and I'm not sure it's a good idea. In fact, I mean, look, forget about this is not about what I think's a good or bad idea. But from the Biden administration perspective, what I'm trying to say is I think from their perspective, it should be a bad idea, whether it's on their radar or not, whether it's on the table or not, whether they're thinking about it or not, which I made no claims about. It is still a bad idea. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to interview a journalist, and we're going to talk about what UFO transparency disclosure might look like under the Trump administration, what it means for the UFO issue, for Trump becoming the president. This individual knows his stuff, and I'm looking forward to it, so look out for that. And this has been a nice little picnic we've had together. I really enjoyed this. I love uploading videos. Please do not forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to support my channel, you can check out my merch shop where I sell t-shirts. You could become a patron. You could become a YouTube member. You can give me a one-time donation. Or you can just slap a like on this bad boy, and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all YouTube members, patrons, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.